Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. William Wood is a relatively new British watch brand, and they were founded by Jonny Garrett. William Wood was his grandfather, and their entire lineup of watches are a tribute to him and other firefighters like him. They use upcycled fire hoses in their straps and merchandise, and also use recycled firefighter brass helmets to create small ornaments that are part of the watch design. The brand also gives back to the firefighter and first responder community through charitable donations, and the William Wood watch brand has gotten a lot of media attention over the last few years. To be completely transparent, I've been skeptical about these watches, and I've been critical about their pricing in the past. But when Johnny approached me and asked if I'd be interested in doing a review, I couldn't pass on an opportunity to see if my opinions would change after actually spending time with one of these watches and looking at them up close. Because more often than not, a good watch is able to transcend its specifications and components, and the intangible stuff can entirely change how I feel about a particular watch. What I'm referring to is the pricing on this watch with respect to the movement that's beating inside of it. To address the elephant in the room, this William Wood Valiant uses a Seiko NH35 and is priced at $975 US. From the perspective of a watch idiot savant, this pricing is highly irregular, and even the polarizing Unimatic watches with this movement are in the $600 to $700 range. But my suspicion is that William Wood isn't interested in being a hit among the Microbrand crowd, and they're more likely interested in entering the designer and fashion brand watch market, where a watch movement carries little to no weight, like the $1,800 Gucci grip, for example. But with that in mind, I choose to still treat this watch as if it were any other $975 watch that came my way. So let's take a look at how it holds up in terms of design, build quality, and finishing. I measured the case to be 41.25 millimeters in diameter, 48.5 millimeters from lug to lug, and 15.75 millimeters tall, closer to 13 millimeters if you ignore the large dome crystal. The stainless steel case is primarily brushed, and both the build quality and the finishing on the case are excellent. The mid case is pretty tall, tapers slightly, and curves into a pair of short lugs. The lug width is 20 millimeters, and the lugs are not drilled through. There is a 120 click unidirectional bezel which has an excellent grip and a blue aluminum insert that looks a lot like the one on my Tudor Black Bay. The insert has only a lume pip at the 12 o'clock position. The bezel action is okay, and I noticed there's a bit more play in the bezel than I would have liked from a $1,000 watch. What I do like about the bezel is that it is sloped and effortlessly extends into the large domed sapphire crystal. The entire curvature of the bezel and crystal is really well designed and well engineered. At the 3 o'clock position, there is a 5.25mm signed crown that is easy to grip and operate, and set inside a great looking crown guard design. The crown is capped with the brand's iconic firefighter helmet logo made from real brass firefighter helmets. Flipping it over, you have a screw-down case back with an exhibition window. This watch is rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance, which is a bit on the lower end for a dive watch in general, but still more than sufficient for most of our lifestyles. The Valiant is offered in 6 different color options, and I requested to review the blue dial option. But I think the red and green ones look fantastic as well. There is a checkered outer track that has subtle minute markers that extend inward. I wish these markers were slightly longer, as they are hard to read because of the crystal distortion. The quality of printing is great though, and the design is said to be inspired by the checkered marking seen on British fire trucks. This is a sandwich dial design with recessed hour markers. The hour markers are rectangular recessed indices for 3 of the 4 main axes, and circular recessed indices for the rest. The website states that the double index at the 12 o'clock is inspired by the rank markings of a crew manager, but that feels like a bit of a marketing stretch since double indices are pretty popular among watches. The finishing is very clean though, and I can always appreciate a well-executed sandwich dial design. You then have a date window at the 3 o'clock position that is cut into the dial. The date wheel has a white background with black text, and I think these watches could have benefited from having dial-matched date wheel backgrounds instead. But the high contrast date window is legible even with the crystal distortion, and the overall finishing is good. The brand's firefighter helmet emblem is applied under the 12 o'clock marker along with the brand's name, and there's also some text above the 6 o'clock position. I like that the color of all the printed elements are uniform across loomed and non-loomed elements. The hand set is well proportioned and has a simple design. The hour and minute hands have rectangular loomed elements, and the finishing seems great. The seconds hand has a circular loomed element and a triangular counterbalance element that I believe is inspired by a fire engine bell. I like the legibility of the hands, and I think the finishing is spot on as well. Overall, the dial is neat and has good finishing. Apart from a bit of crystal distortion near the outer track, the legibility is pretty good too. The fact that this is a well-made sandwich dial automatically earns this watch some brownie points for me, and I don't have any real complaints about the design or execution. All the recessed elements in the sandwich design are filled with superluminova, and that's another reason to love sandwich dials like this one. The three-dimensional design of the dial makes for an interesting lume experience. The indices have a good amount of lume in them, and I'd say the brightness and longevity is good as well. The hands are a lot brighter and last a bit longer too. The hands have large sections for lume, and the seconds hand has a circular lumed element, so I think the lume design and performance in this watch is very good overall. As mentioned earlier, this watch uses a Seiko NH35 movement, and that's a very difficult pill for me to swallow considering the $975 price tag. This is a movement you typically find in sub $500 watches, and to see it on a watch priced twice as much is going to put off a lot of people. And I think this comes down to where this brand is positioning itself. I think they're less interested in catering only to the Microbrand enthusiast community, but they also want to target the fashion and lifestyle watch community as well. And as we've already seen with brands like Unimatic and a lot of other designer brands that make watches, none of that crowd actually cares about what movement is in the watch. It's just us watch nerds and movement snobs, but I'd wear a Gucci grip in a heartbeat. I just can't get myself to pay $2,000 for it. Getting back to the Valiant, the Sellita SW200 equipped versions cost $1,150, and personally that's the version of this watch I would recommend. I've spent more on Sellita equipped watches in the past, and I'm comfortable paying that extra money for tighter bounds on accuracy, a higher beat rate, and a movement that's equally easy to service. But even that movement option is going to be insufficient for most value watch seekers, who are a significant fraction of the Microbrand watch community. But getting to this movement in specific, the Seiko NH35 has a lot of the usual scratches, dings, dirt, and fingerprints I usually see on these movements. But this is also much cleaner than the Seiko 4R35 I reviewed on my friend's Presage a few months ago. But it still doesn't scream $1,000 watch to me in terms of quality control, so that's a bit disappointing as well. On my time grapher, I observed roughly -1 seconds per day in the dial up position and -4 seconds per day in the crown up position, so at least the performance is very good. Jonny was also kind enough to send me one of each of their upcycled fire hose straps. I'm a sucker for good quality rubber and silicone straps, so these are a welcomed addition to my rapidly growing strap collection. The core of the strap is made out of silicone, with the top surfaces being made of repurposed fire hoses. I think the red strap looks best on the blue watch, and it also lets me channel in my inner Kevin O'Leary. The quality of these straps is excellent, from the stitching to the sign buckle, but this is expected since they cost about $140 a piece. The 41.25mm diameter and 48.5mm lug-to-lug width are compact and fit well on my 6 1/4 inch wrist. However, the 15.75mm overall height is definitely on the larger side of what I would prefer, and this is due to the large dome crystal and the sizable mid-case section. But I also think the crystal and bezel design looks great and wouldn't really change it, so I'm at somewhat of an impasse where this is concerned. The watch can feel slightly imbalanced at times, especially if you prefer to wear your watches a bit loose. In that case, you might want to get the bracelet to better distribute the weight. So I wouldn't call it an uncomfortable watch, but depending on how you wear it, you might notice some movement when it's on your wrist. So to wrap this up quickly, I'll say that while I entirely recognize that a watch is more than a sum of its parts, I still find $975 to be too expensive for this watch in particular. I can't shake off the fact that this is a roughly $30 movement inside, while I could get an entirely capable, well-built, well-designed and well-finished chronometer certified Sellita SW200-1 equipped watch for less than this, and on a bracelet from Christopher Ward. And I think the only real option for us watch nerds is the Sellita SW200-1 equipped Valiant at $1,150 US. But conversely, those that are able to connect with the story behind William Wood and those that want to contribute, support, or be part of this brand and their story won't find it difficult to part with that money. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to read my other reviews in the link below.